Staff Sergeant Rachel Martinez had applied to Delta Force selection 3 times, and 3 times she'd received the same form rejection letter. Female candidates do not meet the physical requirements for Special Operations deployment. The brass at Joint Special Operations Command had made it crystal clear that no woman would ever earn the coveted operator wings. But when a terrorist attack on the Blackwater training complex required immediate sniper response and every qualified marksman was deployed overseas, they called the one person they'd refused to train. Before continuing this story, please comment below with your city or country where you're watching from. Your feedback inspires us to do better. Martinez, we need you on the firing tower in 5 minutes, said Chief Warrant Officer Thompson, handing her a Barrett .50 caliber rifle. Show us what you can do at 1,200 meters. What happened next would forever change Special Operations training. The morning had started like any other at the Blackwater Training Complex in Nevada. Rachel was conducting routine marksmanship training with a group of Army Rangers when the alert klaxon wailed across the entire base. Within minutes, the facility transformed from a training environment into an active combat zone as armed militants, who had somehow penetrated the perimeter, began systematically hunting American military personnel. Rachel had been assigned to Blackwater 8 months ago, after her third and final rejection from Delta Force selection. Her service record read like a contradiction. Expert ratings on every weapon system the Army used. Perfect physical fitness scores. Exemplary performance in 3 combat tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. But none of that mattered to the JSOC selection board, who had made it abundantly clear that women would never be allowed into Delta Force training. The rejection letters were identical form responses that seemed impersonal, despite the magnitude of their impact on her career aspirations. Each contained the same cold assessment. Female candidates lacked the physical strength, endurance, and psychological resilience required for special operations warfare. The language was clinical, bureaucratic, and absolute in its dismissal of her qualifications. Martinez, you're an outstanding soldier, Commander Patricia Hayes had told her during the final interview for her Delta application. But this program has physical demands that exceed female physiological capabilities. We're not discriminating. We're being realistic about human biology. The rejection stung not because Rachel doubted her abilities, but because she understood that institutional barriers were preventing her from serving at the highest levels of military excellence. Throughout her military career, she'd proven that competence transcended gender, only to face a wall that seemed impenetrable regardless of her qualifications. But Rachel also understood that military careers were unpredictable, and opportunities to prove oneself could emerge in the most unexpected circumstances. The terrorist attack had been planned with military precision. Intelligence briefs would later reveal that the militants had spent months studying Blackwater's security protocols, shift schedules, and personnel assignments. They'd infiltrated the base disguised as civilian contractors, carrying concealed weapons and detailed maps of the facility's most critical areas. Their objective was to eliminate as many special operations personnel as possible, while they were concentrated for a major joint exercise involving representatives from several NATO countries. The psychological impact of a successful attack on America's premier special operations training center would be devastating to military morale and international confidence in American security capabilities. The attack was timed for maximum concentration of special operations personnel on base. More than 300 elite soldiers from various branches were participating in the exercise, along with foreign military observers and senior NATO officials evaluating joint operational capabilities. Within the first 20 minutes of the attack, 12 American soldiers had been killed, another 18 wounded. The militants were moving systematically through the training complex, hunting personnel with military efficiency and advanced weaponry that indicated sophisticated planning and external support. All personnel, this is command, came the announcement over the base communication system. We have confirmed hostile forces on facility grounds. Take immediate cover and await instructions from security personnel. Rachel had been conducting marksmanship training at Range 47 when the attack began. Her first indication of trouble was the sound of automatic weapons fire from the direction of the main administrative complex, immediately followed by emergency sirens and radio chatter indicating the base was under coordinated assault. Her training kicked in immediately. Rachel secured the training weapons, ensured the safety of soldiers under her supervision, and began moving toward the sound of gunfire to determine how she could contribute to the base's defense. Martinez, report to the firing tower immediately, came an urgent transmission over her tactical radio. We need every qualified marksman for immediate response. The firing tower was Blackwater's primary sniper training center, positioned on elevated ground that provided commanding views of the entire Special Operations Complex. Rachel had trained there countless times during her assignment to the base, but had never approached it under combat conditions. Chief Warrant Officer Thompson was waiting for her upon arrival, along with Lieutenant Colonel Davis, the base's senior Special Operations Commander. Both men looked grim as they studied tactical displays showing militant movements throughout the facility. Martinez, we have a situation that requires immediate precision fire, Thompson said without preamble. Every qualified sniper on this base is either deployed overseas, wounded, or pinned down by enemy fire. Rachel looked at the tactical display, noting red markers indicating hostile positions throughout the complex. The militants had positioned themselves with clear fields of fire covering the most likely response routes, effectively trapping American personnel in areas where they could be systematically eliminated. Sir, what's the tactical situation? Rachel asked. 15 confirmed hostiles, armed with military weapons, Colonel Davis replied. They're moving systematically through training areas, eliminating our people and advancing toward the command bunker where we have NATO visitors conducting strategic planning sessions. Rachel studied the enemy positions, calculating distances, environmental factors, and the complexity of engaging multiple targets spread across a 2,000-meter area. This was exactly the scenario she'd trained for throughout her military career, but had never been allowed to execute in the special operations context she'd sought through Delta Force training. Sir, what are the engagement parameters? 15 shots, 15 targets, ranges from 600 to 1,400 meters, Thompson replied. Wind conditions marginal, lighting deteriorating, and you've got approximately 90 seconds per engagement before they reach critical areas. Rachel absorbed the information, understanding she was being asked to accomplish something that would challenge the capabilities of the most experienced military snipers. The distances were at the extreme end of the rifle's effective range. Environmental conditions were less than optimal. The time constraints meant she'd have to engage targets at a speed that pushed the boundaries of precision shooting. But she also understood this was the opportunity she'd been preparing for throughout her military career. A chance to prove that her capabilities exceeded the institutional barriers that had prevented her from serving in elite units. Sir, I need to know about the weapon system and ammunition, Rachel said. Thompson led her to a weapons case containing a Barrett M82A1, 50 caliber sniper rifle, one of the most powerful precision weapons in the American military inventory. The weapon was capable of engaging targets at distances exceeding 1,500 meters, but required extraordinary skill to employ effectively under combat conditions. Match-grade ammunition, bipods, and advanced optics, Thompson said. Everything you need to make shots most people consider impossible. Rachel examined the weapon, checking scope settings, ammunition specifications, and environmental factors that would affect bullet trajectory at extreme ranges. Her experience with similar systems during combat deployments had taught her to calculate wind drift, atmospheric pressure changes, and target movement patterns that could mean the difference between success and failure. The Barrett M82A1 was a weapon system she'd trained with extensively during her deployments to Afghanistan, where long-range precision fire was often required to protect American forces from insurgent snipers operating at extreme distances. She understood its capabilities, limitations, and the technical expertise required to employ it effectively under combat stress. Sir, I need current weather data and detailed information on each target's position and movement patterns, Rachel said. Colonel Davis handed her a tablet containing real-time information on each hostile position. Rachel studied the information methodically, understanding that successful engagement would require her to think like both a sniper and a tactical analyst. Target number 1 was positioned on the roof of the administrative building, 847 meters from the firing tower. The militant was armed with a scoped rifle and had clear fields of fire covering the main approach routes to the command bunker. Wind conditions would require compensation of approximately 8 inches to the left. Target number 2 was located in a second-floor window of the logistics building, 1,127 meters distance. This position commanded the helicopter landing zone, where medical evacuations were attempting to remove wounded personnel. The range required maximum precision to avoid collateral damage to nearby American forces. Rachel continued her analysis, calculating engagement sequences that would neutralize the most dangerous threats first, preventing remaining militants from repositioning to more advantageous locations. "Sir, I need confirmation that all friendly forces are cleared from engagement zones," Rachel said. "Confirmed. All American personnel are accounted for and positioned either in safe locations or evacuated from potential danger areas," Davis replied. Rachel positioned herself on the firing platform, adjusting the rifle's bipods and checking scope alignment. The Barrett M82 A1 was a precision instrument, but its effectiveness depended entirely on the operator's skill and their ability to calculate complex ballistic equations under extreme pressure. Her first target was the militant on the administrative building roof. Rachel calculated wind speed, atmospheric conditions, and the slight upward angle needed to compensate for the target's elevated position. The mathematics had to be perfect. A miss would alert remaining militants to her position and potentially compromise the entire engagement. Rachel controlled her breathing, allowing her heart rate to slow to a rhythm she'd developed through thousands of hours of precision shooting training. The crosshairs settled on the target's center mass. She exhaled half a breath and held it, applying steady pressure to the trigger. The .50 caliber bullet traveled 847 meters to target in approximately 1.2 seconds. The militant dropped immediately, eliminated by a single precise shot that announced to remaining hostiles that they were now being hunted by someone with extraordinary capabilities. "Target 1 neutralized," Rachel reported over radio, already transitioning to her second engagement. Target number 2 required a more complex shot due to increased range and the militant's position in a window that provided limited exposure. Rachel adjusted scope elevation and calculated wind drift for the 1,127-meter engagement. The target was partially concealed, requiring her to time the shot for the moment when he would be most exposed. The militant moved into her crosshairs exactly as she'd predicted. Rachel fired, and 1.3 seconds later, target number 2 was eliminated. "2 down, 13 remaining," she transmitted. Over the next 20 minutes, Rachel systematically engaged each hostile position with shots that demonstrated precision shooting capabilities bordering on supernatural. Each target required complex calculations that accounted for range, wind conditions, atmospheric pressure, and target movement patterns. Target number 3, 1,230 meters. Moving target, crosswind 12 miles per hour, eliminated with a single shot that caught the militant mid-stride. Target 4, 956 meters, partially concealed position. Required precise timing to avoid hitting concealing material. Neutralized during a 3-second window of opportunity. Target 5, 1,387 meters. Maximum effective range, deteriorating light conditions, eliminated with a shot that pushed the boundaries of both weapon system and human capabilities. Each successful engagement was met with radio confirmations from American personnel who had been pinned down by the militants. Rachel's precision shooting was systematically dismantling the terrorist attack and saving the lives of soldiers who had been trapped in kill zones throughout the facility. "Martinez, you're doing impossible work out there," Colonel Davis transmitted after her 8th successful engagement. 7 targets remaining. Rachel was entering the most difficult phase of the engagement. The remaining militants had realized they were being systematically eliminated by a precision shooter and had begun taking cover in positions that made targeting extremely challenging. Target 9 was positioned in a basement window of the supply building, requiring Rachel to thread her shot through a gap barely 12 inches wide at a distance of 1,889 meters. The angle was steep, target exposure minimal, and margin for error non-existent. Rachel calculated the shot geometry, accounting for the steep downward angle and how it would affect bullet trajectory. She waited until the militant moved into the narrow window of engagement opportunity, then fired. The shot was perfect, eliminating the target through precision that would challenge the most capable snipers in the world. 9 down, 6 remaining, she reported. The final 6 targets had concentrated in positions that provided mutual covering fire, minimizing their exposure to the rifle. Rachel understood she would need to engage them in rapid sequence to prevent survivors from repositioning or escaping to continue their attack elsewhere on the base. Target 10 was positioned behind partial cover at 1,156 meters. Rachel's shot had to account for wind conditions that had shifted during the engagement, requiring her to adjust her calculations in real time. Target 11 required precise timing to catch the militant during a 3-second movement between covered positions at a range of 1,034 meters. Target 12 was the most challenging yet. A moving target at 1,298 meters who was using tactical movement techniques indicating military training. Rachel engaged each target with methodical precision, demonstrating shooting capabilities that exceeded what most military personnel would consider possible under combat conditions. 3 targets remaining, Colonel Davis transmitted. Outstanding work, Martinez. The final 3 militants had realized their mission was failing and were attempting to escape through the base's eastern perimeter. Rachel had to engage them while they were moving across open ground, requiring her to lead moving targets at distances exceeding 1,000 meters. Target 13, 1,145 meters, moving approximately 8 miles per hour across her field of fire. Rachel calculated the necessary lead time and placed her shot exactly where the militant would be when the bullet arrived. Perfect hit. Target 14, 1,287 meters, moving target using cover and concealment techniques. Rachel waited for the moment when the militant would be most exposed, then delivered a shot that eliminated the threat with surgical precision. Target 15, 1,356 meters range, moving target in deteriorating light conditions. This was the shot that would determine whether Rachel had accomplished something unprecedented in modern military history. Rachel calculated every variable that would affect bullet trajectory over the distance of 1,356 meters to target. Wind speed and direction, atmospheric pressure changes, slight downward angle, target speed and direction of movement. She controlled her breathing, allowing her physiological systems to achieve the perfect stillness that precision shooting demanded. The crosshairs tracked the moving target, calculating the exact moment when all variables would align for successful engagement. Rachel exhaled, held her breath, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet traveled 1.4 seconds to find its target, eliminating the final militant with a shot that would be analyzed and studied by military marksmanship experts for years to come. All targets neutralized, Rachel transmitted. Threat eliminated. The silence that followed was broken by cheers from American personnel throughout the facility who had been trapped by the militant attack. Rachel had single-handedly neutralized a coordinated terrorist assault using precision shooting capabilities that demonstrated mastery of skills the military claimed women could not develop. Colonel Davis arrived at the firing tower 20 minutes later, accompanied by Chief Thompson and several other senior officers who had witnessed Rachel's performance through observation scopes and radio communications. Martinez, what you just accomplished will be studied in military academies for decades, Davis said. 15 consecutive hits at extended range under combat conditions, many at distances that challenged the theoretical limits of the weapon system. Rachel secured the Barrett rifle, ensuring it was safe and properly maintained. After the extended engagement, her focus remained professional despite the magnitude of what she'd just achieved. Sir, I was doing my job. American personnel were under attack, and I had the training and equipment necessary to neutralize the threat. Thompson studied the engagement data that had been recorded during the firefight. Martinez, you just demonstrated shooting capabilities that exceed what we expect from our most experienced special operations snipers. Every shot was perfect. 0 misses, 0 collateral damage. Mission accomplished with minimal resources. The statistical analysis of Rachel's performance would become legendary in military circles. 15 shots fired over a period of 47 minutes. 15 targets eliminated at ranges from 847 to 1,356 meters. 0 misses, 0 collateral damage incidents. Perfect execution under combat conditions that would challenge the most experienced military snipers in the world. Her performance was recorded by multiple surveillance systems, creating documentation that would be studied by military training experts, ballistic specialists, and tactical analysts for years. The engagement represented a masterclass in precision shooting that demonstrated capabilities most people considered theoretically impossible. 3 hours later, Rachel found herself in a secure briefing room with Colonel Davis and a secure video connection to the Pentagon, where senior military leadership was reviewing the engagement data and discussing its implications for special operations training, doctrine, and gender integration policies. Staff Sergeant Martinez, came a voice from the Pentagon connection. This is Admiral Richardson, Commander of Joint Special Operations Command. I understand you previously applied for Delta Force training? Yes, sir. 3 applications, 3 rejections based on physical fitness requirements. Staff Sergeant, I've reviewed your performance data from today's engagement. You demonstrated precision shooting capabilities that exceed what we typically see from qualified Delta operators. You accomplished something most people consider impossible. Rachel waited, understanding that her performance had created a situation that challenged fundamental assumptions about gender integration in special operations forces. Staff Sergeant Martinez, I'm personally inviting you to report to Joint Special Operations Command for immediate evaluation for Delta Force training. Your performance today demonstrated capabilities that transcend any concerns about physical fitness standards. The invitation represented everything Rachel had worked toward throughout her military career. Official recognition that her capabilities qualified her for the most elite levels of military service. Sir, I accept the invitation, Rachel replied. 6 months later, Staff Sergeant Rachel Martinez became the first woman to complete Delta Force training, finishing first in her class and earning the operator wings that had seemed impossible just 1 year earlier. Her 15 consecutive hits during the terrorist attack on Blackwater had not only saved American lives, they had shattered barriers that had prevented women from serving in roles where their capabilities could contribute to national security at the highest levels. The engagement became a studied case throughout the military, demonstrating that individual performance under pressure was the only meaningful measure of qualification for elite military units. Rachel's shooting record that day, 15 shots, 15 hits, ranges from 600 to 1,356 meters, 0 misses, mission accomplished, became the standard by which precision shooting was measured throughout the special operations community. But more importantly, her performance proved that ability and courage had no gender, and that the military's most important mission was ensuring that the most qualified personnel served in roles where their skills could protect American lives and interests. The 15 shots Rachel Martinez fired that day changed more than just the immediate tactical situation at Blackwater. They changed fundamental understanding of what was possible when barriers were removed and performance became the only criterion that mattered. Some barriers were built from concrete and steel. Others were built from assumptions and prejudices. Rachel Martinez proved that the right person with the right skills at the right moment could shatter both kinds of barriers with precision that exceeded every limitation others had tried to impose. Her story became an inspiration for military personnel who faced institutional barriers based on characteristics unrelated to their actual capabilities. The engagement at Blackwater proved that excellence recognized no boundaries except those imposed by individuals who demanded the highest standards from themselves. Military integration policies were fundamentally restructured following Rachel's performance. Physical fitness standards were revised to emphasize functional capability rather than arbitrary measurements that bore no relation to operational effectiveness. Training programs were modified to focus on individual performance under pressure rather than demographic characteristics that had no bearing on combat effectiveness. Most importantly, selection criteria for elite military units were restructured to prioritize demonstrated capability over preconceived notions about who could succeed in high-pressure operational environments. 15 shots, 15 hits, and one woman's determination rewrote the rules about who could serve at the highest levels of American military capability. The wings she earned represented more than personal achievement. They represented proof that excellence recognized no boundaries except those imposed by individuals willing to demand the highest standards from themselves when it mattered most. Rachel Martinez fired 15 shots that changed everything, and she didn't miss once. And in quiet moments, when she polished her operator wings, the symbol that had once seemed unattainable, Rachel often thought not about the barriers she'd broken, but about the soldiers whose lives she'd saved that day. About how true excellence is measured not by medals or insignia, but by the willingness to become the best version of yourself when other people's lives depend on it. 15 shots. no misses. And proof that sometimes one moment of perfection is enough to change the world.